Hello, hello, welcome. So today we have Sheral DeVaughn, and she's an editor, and she's doing a lot of amazing stuff. And she will introduce herself and explain a little bit more about editing today. Welcome,
Adelia,
Sheral. Thank you for being here today.
thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. And hello to everyone. As Adelia said, my name is Sheral DeVaughn. I am the founder and owner of Speaking with Cher. I am a communication strategist, and what that does is I come up with ways of taking your message, your story, your words, and putting it in a format that's easily accessible to your ideal audience. And I do that in a number of different ways. One, editing manuscripts. Come from a background 20 plus years of radio, but also in marketing, in website content, social media content, in manuscripts, both in as an author, as an editor, and in handling voice work. So I've got 20 plus years of dealing with words. Um, we look at a lot of different ways of handling our messaging. And as authors, we often think because we know the stories and we know what we want to say, that we might be best for taking care of our own edits and then sending them off and thinking that everything is going to be perfect. It's going to be easily digestible for our readers, for our audience. And I'm here to explain why editing is a really good choice for authors, including myself. I don't do a lot of self editing for a good reason. We miss things in the process. We get so close to the situation. It's that old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees. And we become so engrossed in our own story and our own writing that we miss a lot of the details. That's why it is so important as creators, as authors, to have someone else take a look with a different set of eyes coming from the outside to see if it flows, to see if it works. Editing can be a very confusing process to go through for an author, because there are quite a few choices in editors and they do a number of different things. There are literally 6 different types of editing that are out there, all for different things, and there's some overlap in how they do it. If Odelia, if you're all right, I would like to kind of just give that basic overview of what each
Yeah,
type of editor does.
yeah, we can do that. I'm interested, Diana. I think, yeah, okay, yeah.
And please, if you have questions along the way or a thought, just jump in. I mean, I'm I'm pretty informal. I would much rather just have that
Yeah,
conversation and go back and forth rather than, being a talking head here. But
yeah, Diana, you can feel free to
yeah,
ask.
please.
I will. So
Oh, you I know, you I know will
I
definitely.
will for sure. Even though I know her, I know Cheryl, but I will for sure ask a question. So
I love it. That's the way it should be. So the first type of an editor that you may come across is an evaluation editor. An evaluation editor, I think the best way for me to explain that is it's it's kind of like when you've got to do your taxes. You have a tax practitioner and then you have the IRS. An evaluation editor is a lot like the IRS. They're not doing your taxes for you, but they're taking a look at the overall structure and making certain you haven't missed something, that you haven't done something wrong. An evaluation editor is is there solely to assess your flow, the structure of your manuscript, and the quality. They don't do the changes themselves. They will mark up your manuscript, though, and let you know, hey, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. They're there solely to make your manuscript a little tighter and a little stronger. But they don't worry about all of the punctuation and the spelling and things like that. It's kind of like when I was back in high school a bazillion years ago, and when I had Mrs. Kellogg take one of my book reports and take that red pen and go through everything I didn't do correctly with the structure. That's what your evaluation editor will do. Your second type of editor is the one that your evaluation editor will likely send you to, and that's the developmental editor. Now, a developmental editor takes the manuscript that an author has. Maybe you don't have a full manuscript. Maybe you just have a rough outline. Maybe you only have the idea. A developmental editor will come in and help you piece all of those things together. They will take your outline and breathe life into it. Take all of the different ideas that you have. Think of it as sort of like a vision board or what have you. You have this here. You have this scrapbook piece here. You have this. A developmental editor will come in and take all of those little pieces and create this beautiful tapestry for you, if you will. It's like art. They're not focused on word choices there either, though. A developmental editor isn't worried about which words you're using. They're not worried about the spelling. They're not worried about your punctuation or your grammar. They're only worried about creating structure and consistency for you to develop exactly what they're for. Develop a manuscript, to actually create that manuscript out of your ideas and your pieces. Hopefully this is making sense so far. Your third editor. Your third editor is the one there that starts to look at things a little more like what you would think an editor would look for, and that's the content or substantive editor. They look at the big picture, but more closely. They go in paragraph by paragraph to make certain that everything is flowing, that everything is consistent. But more importantly, they're the ones that look to make certain that what you've written actually reflects your voice. It reflects your tone. And it's sort of like the diplomat or an interpreter. They take your voice and then they go and take a look at the audience, your reader, the person that you want to connect to the most, and determine whether your voice and your messaging actually go along with the way your reader will speak, the way that they take in information and understand things. So, for example, when I was editing Adelia's manuscript, there was the question of the language barrier and whether it would sound right to an English speaking audience as opposed to say a French speaking or Hebrew speaking audience. It was my job to take and make certain that everything was going to flow and make sense for that reader, still maintain her voice and her tone in the manuscript, but present it in a way that was easy for her ideal audience to understand, to take it in, to make certain that that whole flow goes there. They're not as detailed as a line editor would be, but they are going in paragraph by paragraph to make certain that that flow and structure still takes place. Then we get to number 4, which is the line editor. These fine folks are the ones that like to get straight into the weeds. They go deep diving, sentence by sentence, to create word impact for each sentence. They're not looking at the big picture or the structure of your story. They figure you've already got that down. What they're looking for is how to make the sentences, each sentence, truly come alive most effectively and with the most impact. They're not going to let you have run-on sentences. They look for those. They will be looking for cliches, overused cliches. They'll be looking for jargon that maybe the reader won't quite understand, or it just becomes difficult to read at that. But they're smack dab in the middle of the sentence, use machete to cut out the things that detract from your story. So that's what a line editor will do. Then you've got your copy editing editor, and they're the ones that love to get into all of the grammar and the spelling. Do you have all of those bits of punctuation squared away? They're solely there like a teacher's aide, if you will, with the red pen. They're not quite as, they're not way up there like your English teacher, but they're looking for all those little mistakes so they can grade your paper. That's what your copy editor does. And then, of course, finally, you have a proofreader. That's when you've gone through all of those 5 steps and you're ready to go to print and you are certain it's perfect. And there then comes that proofreader. And the proofreader is probably one of the more important editors that you will find before you send it out to print. Even when you are positive there are no mistakes, your proofreading editor will find those mistakes for you. It's that extra set of eyes just to catch things before you put the story that you've poured your heart and soul into, before you put it in print and then have people go, well, they missed a question mark here, or there's only half a set of quotation marks, or how people will nitpick at things. The proofreader's job is to make certain that those things aren't missed. And so those are the 6 different types of editors that you will come across. And depending on where you are in the writing of your manuscript will determine which one you want, or which editor does the right combination of the things that you need to have done for yourself. And that's why it is so important as an author not to attempt to tackle that by yourself. It's always best to have someone else that will at least do parts of those things for you in an effort to put out the very best version of your story. Are there any questions about what I mean, that was a lot. 6 different editors to go through and give you that overview from about 40,000 feet. But do you have specific questions for me?
Not really questions, but I had no idea there were so many types of editors for sure.
It's crazy. It's like having shoes, they all cover your feet. They all protect them and such, but there's a different style for a different occasion. And they're
I'm not surprised. Like, it makes sense that you would need all those different types, because I'm sure there's someone like the proofreader, and when I'm pretty good at proofreading and editing, and I don't even mean my own stuff, but people will send me their things because I'm a grammar freak, and I'm not a exceptional grammar freak, but like I'm better than the average Joe, I guess. So,
gotcha.
But like you said, like I'm just correcting I'm like first looking at their grammar and their spelling and punctuation, and then I'm like, I might like pick apart a sentence or two, but like I don't want to change their whole story. And like, not that any of these people are doing that, but I can see, where you like, for example, like when I first started working with Odelia, I was like, well, I started with an outline because I've started this book so many times And I'm like, I don't know where the hell I'm going. So finally I was like, okay, I need some more structure. So I did the outline. I read a few different things on like, you could create sticky notes, which, or you could do like, there were some different concepts. So I actually first created the sticky notes. I was like, okay, this chapter, and then I wrote it down in like an outline form. And that helped me have some direction, And so like I can see where, I think you said the development editor could really come in handy at that point,
Absolutely.
because I still have a few chapters to go, and I'm just kind of like, I was telling Odelia early on also, like, I felt like the further I got into the book, the less connected I got. And I think because I was trying to get through it, because I made a goal for myself, and then I kind of stopped. And so now I've started again. And I know it's gonna take some time, but yeah, it's I can see where all the different editing makes sense, because
And the reason that it may be so difficult as an author, where you start going, I don't even want to deal with this. I'm becoming disconnected from my own story. Is there's so many different pieces
yeah,
to worry about,
yeah,
and we each have our own strengths in what we do. Like you said, I mean, you are. It sounds like you are really good with copy editing, proofreading, line editing. But it sounds like you might need help from a developmental
yeah,
and content
yeah,
editor at
yeah,
that point. And keep in mind that authors aren't going to need all 6 of those different types
sure,
of editings.
yeah,
It depends on where your strengths fall. And in this case, you're great. You know your story. You've got your ideas. And I love that your sticky note idea. Um, Piecing all those ideas together, but then how do you make it flow?
mm-hmm.
And that's where I think a developmental or content editor, maybe a little bit of both, and
Okay,
oftentimes they'll be one and the same person.
okay,
um, they're very similar in
okay,
their styles. It's very rare that you will find an editor who only does one. There's usually some overlap in there. But it sounds like that's the part where it just makes sense for you.
yeah, yeah. By the way, I sold radio, so I was a bit in that world. And you remind me of my friend Carla. I was not an on-air personality, although I went on air a few times because they'd pull me in there. But yeah, a couple of years, and my brother was in it for like 30 years. Radio's
Yeah,
unfortunately kind of going down, but
it's changing is what it
it
is.
it is changing.
I had 3 number one morning shows to
Awesome,
my credit.
awesome.
And I did it for 20 plus years. And I still have friends, like one of my old program directors is a gentleman by the name of John Zellner, who is the vice president of programming for our iHeartRadio.
I was,
Their radio is still alive. It's just changing.
yeah,
And terrestrial radio, your commercial, where you just turn on the radio and it's one of the local stations, there's they're falling behind
yeah, yeah.
and need to take a look at things. It's kind of like with writing. You
Hmm.
always have to change and adapt your
Hmm.
style in order to meet the needs of the people that are consuming your
Hmm.
product.
Yeah. What
And
market did you work in?
I'm sorry.
What markets did you work in?
I was in the Kansas City market. I was in the Lubbock, Texas market, and I spent a lot of time in the Shreveport Bossier market.
Okay.
Um, Used to sit on panels for morning show boot camp. Let's see, that was put together by Don Anthony and the late great Kid Craddock. Kid has passed, Don continues on, and so I would sit on expert panels teaching morning show hosts and those who were aspiring
Awesome.
to get to that globally, how
That's
to
great.
best connect with their audiences. And the funny thing is, I mean, we're talking about radio here in a book club and a writing club and with editing. It's the same concepts.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. Just one is with written word, and
Mm-hmm.
the other is with the spoken word. But it all
Hmm.
comes down to how do we best and most effectively connect for impact?
Mm-hmm.
It's those same qualities. Very much so. Yeah,
It was
radio
a fun,
sales, I
it was a
that's
fun
to be said.
industry.
It was always exciting, but I tell you, I'm glad I didn't have to be on the sales side of things. That's
Yeah.
a different animal altogether.
Yeah. I
I
got
enjoy
in
writing.
like right 2 years before the recession, the like 2007.
Yeah.
So right before like the 08, 09 recession. So yeah, it wasn't pretty. And then I
Yeah, with
moved,
the whole subprime and
yeah, I was in the Midwest and then I moved to Colorado, but yeah.
nice. Excellent. Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, then you know very well what it takes to connect with an audience. Definitely. I can see why you're so good with your copy editing and your proofreading then. You have to know those
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
handling a sales contract, you better know those details. You
Well,
better know it
and
with a fine tooth.
we had to write our commercials, most of them. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'd have people send me I remember this chiropractor I was working with, and I think they sent me 2 pages, and I'm like, this is a 60-second commercial. Please don't send me a
Yeah.
novel.
Yeah, I wonder how many scripts, the commercial scripts I had to read before
Yeah,
I would record.
yeah,
You learn very quickly, and I think that's where the editing started for me. I mean, I taught English and things like that, but I think it was in the world of radio when I was doing production, and you had clients coming in literally 2 to 3 pages for a 30-second spot. Come on.
I know, I know. It was
It doesn't
like,
matter how fast I speed up, it's not going to get it done. So
yeah,
it came down to doing that line editing at that point, cutting things out and looking at the
mm-hmm,
big picture
mm-hmm,
and developing it on I'd say a smaller level, but it really wasn't smaller because it had to impact all the
yeah,
way around.
exactly. Yeah,
It goes right back to what we were talking about, where it doesn't matter whether it's the written word or the spoken word.
mm-hmm,
Those same ideas, those same concepts
mm-hmm,
are all there
yeah,
to make it so much better.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Ladies, we have Bonnie who just join
Hey,
us. Hi.
Hi, Bonnie.
So for me, I think it's more of the three last editing I need. It's not to write or develop. It's more of the line copy and proofreading, or maybe
absolutely.
also the one before. So
Just a touch of the content.
yeah,
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
because I was writing now all the other books I'm writing in English, so it will be different from the second, and I would love to know after a while. We will see what you think about that, share, because it's very interesting. So the first book we did together is my first book, You Are Allowed, and it was in Hebrew, and I translate long time ago, and I have actually an editor, and I have a lot of people I work with here in the USA, not in Colorado, but I don't remember exactly where. Anyway, they did a mess, and it was really bad. And I pay a lot of money, and first of all, I think it's really hard to find the right editor, and we need to find the right one to work with. You need to have a certain connection with the editor. For me, it's really, really important because my book are my babies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's not easy part for me to send my book to my manuscript to an editor. You can ask Cher about that. And
Yeah.
when I did the first time in English, I didn't know it was a bad translation, and I didn't know it was everything wrong. And I published on Amazon, and to tell the truth, I was looking. I already spent a lot of money in Israel with editor and publisher because we were supposed to go back to Israel at some point. Okay, so we were supposed to be here for 4 years. So I invest all my money and all my time in Hebrew with Israel. And when we decided to stay, it was really, really okay. I need to make that decision. I need to do it in English. And so I did, but I wasn't ready to put too much money again. And I think in that time it was really cheaper, but today I can realize it was really a lot of money. Like it wasn't that cheaper because I spent a lot of time, and they did a mess, and I didn't know because I didn't know English. And when we were at the business boot camp, I remember I show my book to Veronica. I didn't bring anything with me, just once my book to show to Veronica Yager, my publisher. She opened my book and she said, okay, like, something is wrong here. And so I understood that I need to invest in my book. I need to invest with a good editor and a good publisher. And it's not all the time more money or less money. It's not about the money, but about, you know what? Maybe, yes, we need to invest more money to have more quality. I don't know. But it's really important. And the proofreading is like, I don't know about all the six, but for sure, 2000%, the last one, we all need to do it. So the proofreading, right? So the
Even I
proofreading,
need a proofreader.
yeah. So this
Yeah.
one for 2000%, even in Israel, my editor and they say, no way we are signing a book. To publish a book without doing the proofreading first. So this one is for sure. And my question, so Cher, do we need to have all of those, or we can pick depending on what we are good at and what we are not good at, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think you need all six. I really don't.
Okay.
It depends. I mean, if you know what your manuscript is
Right.
about, if
Okay.
you've got that pretty well squared away, you don't need a developmental editor.
Okay.
You already have it developed. You don't need somebody that will piece it together for you.
Okay.
In some cases, you might need a content editor, like in the case where I was editing your book. I needed to take a look at that content to make sure it worked and flowed for an English speaking audience. And so
Okay.
there was a bit of content editing in that. But someone, maybe like Bonnie or perhaps like Diana might not need that sort of a thing. It's dependent on where you are in the process. You
Okay.
can get an evaluation editor just to make certain that your manuscript is strong. Once you've had everything done before it would ever go to a, a proofreader, if you want to just make certain that it is a strong big picture, that's where an evaluation editor could come into play. The line editor, if you don't feel like there's a lot
Roxy.
of fun, interesting language in there, if it's just very basic, a line editor is going to come in and
Okay.
have a great time with it. Or if maybe you're a little too flowery with your descriptions or whatever, then a line editor would come in and go, that's a run-on sentence, that's a lot of jargon, that's a lot of cliche. We need to work on this and just strengthen that, tighten that up, and make it
Okay.
so that it's stronger too. The editor is just always about making your manuscript stronger. And I think the important quality that you need to look for in a good editor is not, I mean, they can have decades of experience. They could be the most expensive editor. It isn't going to make them the best editor for you. It's the one that isn't looking to take your manuscript and turn it into their voice, their story. It's the one that can hear your voice and your tone and make it flow that way, but connect with your perfect audience with that. And I think so often, well, like anything, is you'll have people that will look at it, and because it's not in their voice or their tone, they want to change it. They think it needs to be fixed. That isn't the case. What a good editor will do will continue to make it your voice and tone, but make it flow so that it's easily readable, easily digestible, and easily understood by your reader.
I think what I love the most of all that is what you say about it need to be a structure, but also flow, like a good flow. So that's what I love the most about that. Okay, so thank you, my dear friend.
It's my
Diana.
pleasure.
Diana disappeared. Bonnie, do you have a question for our friend Diana or Bonnie? Do you have
I'm
a
still
lot?
here. It just said my internet was unstable, so I turned my camera
No,
off.
no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you. I just want to know if you have a more question before we let share go to where.
Yes.
Hi,
Bonnie, I
Bonnie.
got you. What you got?
Hey, hi guys. Okay, so great to see you all.
Good to see you.
This is wonderful. This is not the meeting I thought I was going to, and I'm so glad I'm here. I have some feedback about that conversation you guys just had.
Okay.
I talked to Sheral a little while ago, and she said, I said the word editor, and she said, was it a developmental line letter, a bit editor? And I went, huh? I don't know. And then I realized after I thought about it that the one editor that I worked with through Veronica was maybe all of those things at different times because it's my first book. I'm an English teacher, for goodness sake. Okay. I know a lot about writing. I know a lot about sentence fluency. I know vocabulary. I know how to spell. I know how to proofread. And I'm so glad that I worked with this editor that Veronica had, who was a drill sergeant at times, we butted heads. And I'm so glad that I worked with her because her perspective was very different in ways than my own. So even though I didn't take everything from her, she did a lot to help me. Even though I didn't take everything from her, I learned things that I hadn't thought about. So I consider my investment that I made with her really useful and really worth it. And she actually protected me from two really big things. One was I wanted to borrow quotes from a book from Charlotte's Web, a very popular American kids book written in 1959. And she said, you can't do that. Even if you attribute, you can't. You have to get permission. And then I was going to go through this whole thing with these people who do that. They get you permission on books and such. And I said, no, I'm not paying all that money to do that. So I emailed the person running E.B. White's literary world, and they said, no, you can't. So I got saved from putting stuff in my book that shouldn't have been there, that I wouldn't have had any right to. And then I wrote about my family, and I wrote some really difficult things about two siblings. And she saved me again with, you're going to need a literary attorney if you're going to write like this. And I said, oh, crap, no, I'm not doing that. So I broke two characters into four, changed their genders, changed their names, left out all the identifying possibilities. So she saved me there as well. So it was worth the investment that I made. And even to this day,
Sounds like
still,
she was mostly a content editor.
Yes. So that after you talked about those different types, I was like, that's really what she was helpful, I think, in all of that for me.
I have I knew all of the editing. Just maybe one of them I didn't know, the substantive, the third one.
Substantive is
the only one
interchangeable with content. It's interchangeable with content.
Okay. So now it's really interesting. Sorry, Bonnie, because I'm writing memoir. And in my memoir, I'm writing in third person because it's a decision I made with myself to be able to go deeper into my own stuff. So I always change the name, and I, sorry, I always change the name, and I wrote in the third person. And a lot of people say it's a memoir. How do you do that? It's your memoir. It's your story. And I'm like, I know, but I have a character. Her name is Esther, and you take it or you leave it, people. And so that I would do. But I did have in my second book, I will need to talk with Cher and Veronica about all what you say about other character, because it's about my ex-husband, and I don't want to go, you know, to deal with
Right.
all kind of stuff. But in my first book, I have a song. I have a sentence from a song from a really, really well-known singer in Israel. And so I did had to do through that process of asking for permission, and I paid in Israel for that song.
And you didn't
And now
you didn't even use the whole verse. It was a partial verse.
no,
Yeah.
no, but I had to pay for that. So I
Wow.
can understand and it's really
Yeah.
important to go through all that stuff. But I think it's more of, for me, it's more of at the end of the process when I'm finished writing everything, so I can go and do that. Yeah. Anyway,
It's
thank you.
it's so very important for you to ask the question of your editor, what do they focus on? So that you don't end up paying a bazillion dollars for things that you expected you were going to get and you didn't, or things you didn't think were going to happen, and all of a sudden it comes back and you're going, what is this? What have you done here? Ask the questions, because there are so many different types of editing. And as I said, most editors don't just stick with one. They will overlap. They will do different things, but find out specifically what they do and then explain specifically what you want from them.
I think, Sheryl, that we all need to write our first book to know how to ask
Yes.
questions.
Yes.
Because
I
when I
mean,
start
but
the second book, I'll be like, okay, this is what I need from you. These other things you taught me, I get it, right?
But if I can save you a few of those painful learning steps along the way with this little bit,
Mhm.
then I've won. I've done my job, and save you a couple of mistakes, a couple of problems, and maybe some substantial amounts of money
Yeah, it would be
in
helpful.
asking those questions and knowing to ask and finding out what do you do specifically.
I think it's really interesting because yeah, I think, Bonnie, I understand what you are saying, because I'm still I'm still working on my first book, guys, and I already wrote like 6 or 7 waiting here, just in just here, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I said to Cher when she was working on my manuscript, I said, oh my gosh, I'm not writing like that anymore. It's so annoying. My second book and my third book and my fourth book is, I'm not writing the same. But she said something really important. She said, we are not rewriting the book,
No.
and it's so interesting. But I think, Bonnie, you're right. We need to have our first one to learn. I can relate. Yeah,
Everyone
so
has a
it's
first book in them, and I think it is the most it is the most painful and yet productive and satisfying thing you can ever do in your own personal development and in moving forward. It it really is, there's a book in all of us just
yeah.
waiting to come out. And
At
I
last,
I encourage you, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to put it out there. I mean, it sounds scary that there's 6 editors and it can cost this. Don't be afraid. It doesn't have to be such a daunting process. it's a good process. It's a good learning experience.
It's
Amen.
amazing. Amen. So, Bonnie, when do you write the second book?
I actually started it before the first book with a friend of mine. We're writing it together, and then the book that I just finished and I'm launching in April decided it was going to be written all in one, and it was going to be focused on until I was finished. So I said, okay. So now that I'm done with that, and so much happening. I'm retiring from working within the public education sphere for 25 years in May. And so that person will be done with their job in May for the summer. So then we're going to hit it this summer to write a book it's called How to Hack Your Middle Schooler, for middle school parents who have come to the realization that their darling little elementary school child turned into someone they don't know, and how to focus and handle and manage all that goes on between the grades of 6 and 8, the enormously vast exponential change in preteens and early teenagers, with
Oh my
definitely
God.
a very humorous bent to it. But
Oh,
we've
good.
been both working in this world for many years, so we decided to get together
I
and write
wish I
that.
had had that book when my
Right?
children were going through. This is the book we didn't know we needed, but boy, do we desperately need it.
Desperately
I
need
want,
it. And you know how you put out to find out what people need, right? In your work, you don't say, here, I'm going to create this thing and you're going to buy it. It's let's find out what you need. I have lived for all these years understanding what they need, because it comes to me all the time. So we're
yeah,
going to have a really good
yeah,
time writing this book
uh,
together.
yeah.
Looking
Finishing
forward
it,
to
I should
that.
say. We started it. We need to get back to it now.
They always
Diana,
say there's no manual, and it's like, so now you're giving a little piece of the manual. No manual for raising
Exactly.
kids.
Oh my God, exactly.
Diana,
And I
if you want to share, oh, sorry.
go ahead,
Sorry, Bonnie.
Diana.
Now I want to ask Diana if she wants to share a little bit of what she's writing. Just
Yeah, I am writing, I mean, I don't know if you'd call it autobiography or what, but our memoir like Odelia, sort of, but it's actually part fiction and part fact. And I wasn't really sure what it was going to be when I started writing it, but that's what it's turned out to be. And it is, I believe, because of where I started it in the book in my time period, that it's going to be probably a young adult geared book. But yeah, still a piece in, still, getting it, trying to figure out what it's going to look like. Like I have the beginning, and Odelia has said, work on the middle, but I feel like because my life's not over, I don't have the end, which I know doesn't have to happen, but at the same time, I don't know how to end it.
Oh,
But it's because I grew up with alcoholic parents, and then I had two kids who became heroin addicts. And so speaking of middle children, holy hell, is all I will say. Um, and then I had another one using all other kinds of drugs, not heroin. And I have four kids. I had one that wasn't using. And I don't know if I even told you this, Odelia, but I like started a 12-step group in my town and everything, because I just I couldn't deal with it. And we had moved to Colorado in '09, and 3 weeks before we moved, my ex-husband died, so my kid's dad. So they were self-medicating, So and I was trying to save them, and I couldn't save them. And it was hurting my health, and it was hurting my son in school immensely. And so I broke my lease, moved out of my apartment, didn't tell my three kids where I was moving, and moved in with a friend they didn't know. And so for 2.5 years, I moved 5 times and didn't get mail for 2.5 years. Also, because my son was almost beaten up and killed. And I didn't know if it was like cartel or who, so that's kind of part of the story, but there's a lot more to it. But that's kind of why I started writing it. And then instead of just starting with that piece, I ended up thinking it really went back to like my parents being alcoholics, and how I grew up. But like there's a good and fun side to it also. It's not just like doom and gloom. Like I really, even though I had alcoholic parents, had a great upbringing for the most part. Like my dad wasn't, he could be verbally an asshole sometimes, but like no physical abuse. And it was just like now I know I'm like he was sick, what do you say? But I grew up around a horse stable and there's some stories around that and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, good, I feel like what makes a good movie or book, it's like sad, happy, drama, romance, all the pieces, right? So
Yeah, the full
Absolutely.
scope,
Right.
right?
yeah.
Full scope.
I think there's an ending in there. And this is speaking from the developmental and content editing side, is even when you come to the end of a story or the end of a movie, there's always things that take place afterward. So, the nice thing about with a book is you sort of end where you are now, but you can always address it in the end that this story isn't over yet. And then you can do updates, different versions of that book, or create an anthology. You can create a series if you wanted to, or you just go back in and give an author update in the next, whatever published
Like
version
I'm
you
doing.
want to. Yes,
Yeah, like I'm
absolutely.
doing. I think it's a real process. What I was saying, what I'm saying all the time to Diana and Linda and other ladies in the group, and I always say to take the time to, of course, to write and to do a routine of writing. We talk about that a lot, but we need to to create a real routine to get through that. And we want to be able to publish a book because it's really important for us and for our readers. But in the same time, I always encourage her to be like, to also have that process. It's not easy to write about that stuff, and you need to really respect the process within yourself. And so I did that for a long time with my first book. I can encourage you and say the second book will be easier and faster, but the first one is really special. So that process of going through that is really, I really respect all of you for doing that stuff, and especially you, Diana, for the first one. Is really, really, just take your time. And yes, I was saying, when you deal with the middle, you can deal after that. The ending will come. There is an ending, and it will be just, it will come, no worries. I'm
And
so
if you have, difficulties with that, that's when you turn to a developmental or a content editor who
Okay.
yeah.
gets to know you and your voice and
Yeah.
can help you, maybe, again, like I said at the beginning of this, sometimes it's difficult for us as authors to see the forest for the trees. We are in so deep and so thick. You need somebody to come in with an outside eye and say, oh, hey, I see where this goes. I see the pattern here. I see where it's supposed to be. But it's also very important to make certain that they understand your voice and your tone.
And
Absolutely.
a memoir is around a period of time, right? It could be about an event, or it could be something that occurred over many years. And my own memoir, it's called Cracking the Crazy Maker's Code, and it's a memoir with a family, what I call a generational inheritance, like you were talking about, Diana, that led
Quite
to
good
some really
too, by the way.
difficult. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
And it's to, like, it doesn't have a hard stop because you're still here doing your thing, right? So at the end of mine, I actually wrote a section, please allow me to update you on blah, blah, blah. And it kind of went from, here's the memoir years, and update you kind of where it's happening now. And I'm continuing to go on, come along with me kind of feel, right? That it doesn't end. It's not an autobiography. It's a memoir. The difference,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Yeah. So you can do it. Go do it.
I like it. Thanks.
Do it.
Awesome.
We are like,
You'll
do
be-
it.
You'll be creating benefit for many other people who have lived with the things that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
You're putting it out there to help people know that they're not alone
Mm-hmm.
and that they too can continue to move forward. It's big stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bonnie, do you have a link for your book launch on the April or not?
At this very second, I do not have it yet, but I'm going to put a Zoom link in my next newsletter coming up, and it'll go, which is next week, on Facebook and on LinkedIn. I will put the Zoom link for that, which is April 30th. I'll be launching it on
Okay.
April 30th. Online and in person and here. And Diane, did you say you're in Colorado too? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Aurora.
Oh, okay. I'm in Lafayette.
Okay. I mean, I'm all over Colorado because, well, I'm not traveling around as much, but my son and I used to own a solar business, and then I left that industry because it was a bit of a nightmare. And now I'm doing business development for a CPA firm. So that's why in the beginning, Sheryl, I was like taxes. But I love it. It's a friend of mine. And she's smarter than all get out, and she's really good at what she does. So it's easy to sell her services because she's a rock star at it.
Oh, that's great. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're doing stuff in the world to help out.
I was asking Bonnie because I would love to share that with my group also. So
Yes, ma'am. So I will get on that and get it over to you ASAP. And I greatly appreciate your offer to share it with your group. Thank you.
yeah, no worries.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that my story and my interesting travels through it and it can help other people. And I included reflections and action steps, sort of a guide for how I got from debilitating anxiety to not that anymore. So
I like the title.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a great read. You'll enjoy it.
Thank you,
I
Sheryl.
look forward
Thank you
to
so
it.
much. Appreciate that. We all know what crazy makers can do to us, whether they're people or events or trauma or whatever, you know, how they can twist our heads
Oh, yeah.
around. We have to untwist and keep going forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as authors, I think we need to support one another.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important as well. So definitely, yeah. When you've got that link ready, hit us up and we'll get it out.
Okay.
That's why I created my book club and my writing club. Like it's for the community, strong women together, and we are like we feel safe to share our voice and without judgment and without all the other ugly stuff. So it's really nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being invited to this. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
No worries. You're welcome. I'm happy to
Always good to
see
see you.
you. Yeah, I'm like, oh, Bonnie, yeah.
So Bonnie is in Colorado. Sheryl, where do you live now?
I'm in Kansas City, but I spend an
Okay.
awful lot of time in the Denver, Colorado Springs area
Okay.
as well.
Nice.
She does.
Cheryl,
We like.
yeah, we are. We know her.
Sort of a Coloradan. Is that correct?
Yeah, I say that a lot.
Yes. I'm like,
I
yes,
feel like
I don't
it's
know.
second home. So yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Cheryl. It was really amazing.
It's my pleasure.
information.
Thank you for inviting me. And please, if you come up with other questions or whatever, don't hesitate to reach out. Adelia knows that I am, well, Bonnie knows too. I'm very easy to access and approachable and willing to help.
I will
Easy,
share
but-
your info. What?
I said easy, but not cheap. Never mind.
Oh,
Not in the financial
Reasonably
sense.
priced. Listen, reasonably priced. You know, I'm never cheap, my husband, but yeah, you know, reasonably, there you have it.
yeah, it's depending on, yeah, anyway.
You get
Never
what you
mind.
pay for, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. When
I
I
did
was
I did not mean the financial sense. I meant the husband laughing sense. Never mind.
Oh,
No,
A joke.
I totally understood what you meant. So I'm not cheap, but I am reasonably priced. So.
I was yeah. So thank you again. Oh,
Oh, look at that sweet
Baby.
baby.
That's
I
my
just
Oh.
saw a baby.
Tater Tot is his
Thank
name.
you, Bonnie. So today
Okay.
we had Cheryl, and next time we will have writing prompts and all kind of amazing stuff, exciting stuff. I'm going to meet Diana in person on
Are you coming tomorrow?
yes, tomorrow.
Yay! Yay! It's tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. So tomorrow I'm going to meet Diana in person. So I'm super excited. And I will share all Cheryl information. Diana, I will send you everything. And thank you so much, all of you. Diana, if you have a question and you want to stay on a few minutes to talk or whatever you need, Bonnie, anything, I'm here.
Thank you so much. I'll send you that Zoom link within the next 48 hours.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank
you.
you. I don't really have any questions, Odelia, but really great information.
Okay, thank you so much.
Appreciate you
Diana.
all. Thanks for
Thank you.
having me.
Bye.
And we'll talk soon. Take
Yeah,
care.
for sure. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.